and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. He's head lifeguard for the beach that makes you old. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Oh, pretty good. Just stay away from the coral, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's. I don't like the coral. I don't like it.
I don't like the coral. I don't like the coral.
This week on the podcast, we are doing another of our Deconstructing Addendum series. This is the show where we take a look at the newest films from directors we've covered before on our podcast. This time, we're catching up with my old friend M. Night Shyamalan to talk about his newest film, Old. And of course, by newest film, I mean, it came out like half a year ago.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of old at this point.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, in Beach That Makes You Old time, It's thousands of years old.
It's true.
So we're going to be talking all about Old. It will be a detailed, full spoilers review. And then, as we do on these addendum episodes, we are going to go back and we are going to rank every single M. Night Shyamalan movie from the worst to the best. I actually think you and I have gotten through these rankings pretty cleanly so far, Matt. We don't have a lot of disagreements. We both kind of agree on the places of things. Not a lot of fighting. I'm looking at this list of movies, and I have no idea how I'm going to begin to rank them. I think worst is going to be easy, best is going to be easy, and then in between all that, I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting. I think I know what you're talking about. It'll be interesting if we have disagreements. I don't think we will, but
I don't even know if I mean that we're going to disagree about stuff, but just coming not even to a consensus, but just an internal, personal consensus about where does Lady in the Water go? Maybe that's a bad example. Maybe this is going to be easier than I think. Now that I
we'll see. We'll see.
But first, we have to talk about the newest movie in M. Night's illustrious, incredible career. Of course, we're talking about Old.
What happened to her, Mom?
I don't know. What happened to her?
Body has decomposed.
How quickly can that happen?
7 years.
But she just died.
Wait, where are the kids?
Trent!
Kara!
Come here!
Hey, have you seen my children?
Mom? I'm right here.
Dad, why are you looking at me like that? What's happening to us?
My daughter just turned 6 2 weeks ago.
Mom?
Whatever's happening to us is happening very fast.
You have wrinkles. There's something wrong with this beach.
What's happening?
Mom!
I'm scared!
Matt, what is this movie all about?
A vacationing family discovers that the secluded beach where they're relaxing for a few hours is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives to a single day.
This movie was written and directed by Mr. M. Night Shyamalan. It was based on the graphic novel Sandcastle by Pierre Oscar Levy and Friedrich Peters. It stars Gael Garcia Bernal, Vicky Krieps, and Rufus Sewell. Matt, what did you think of Night's Old?
First, I'm only just now learning that this is based on a graphic novel, but setting it aside, I enjoyed it. I thought the premise was very fun. This is sort of the thing that I have come to love about Shyamalan that didn't pop out to me until we did the project on him, is that he is a science fiction filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That doesn't pop out because of the style of science fiction that he does, but it's always, science fiction fantasy. It's some kind of interesting, fantastical premise, meant to elucidate some corner of human nature, and then he takes it usually very seriously, and then sometimes weirdly campily. And this was a film where the seriousness and the camp are so sort of abutting against each other in a way that's kind of confusing. That's one thing that I want to talk to you about, is just kind of why he chooses to do certain things the way he does. But overall, very enjoyable. I liked it actually more than I thought I would, because I don't know, I felt like people were making fun of this movie like almost to the level of The Happening, and for me, I was like, no, this is just like a straightforwardly good flick. it's definitely weird, but it's not like intentionally doing everything wrong the way The Happening was. So anyway, that probably sounded like damning with faint praise there. I did enjoy this movie. It emotionally moved me.
Mhm.
Good concept, really good acting, like really solid acting.
Oh wow, that is not an opinion that a lot of people are going to share. Actually, I
Um,
agree with you, but we're going to have to get into that for sure.
yeah, we can get into that, and then just like the cinematography and the way it's directed are up to his usual standard, I think. So that's me. What do you think?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this movie. It is everything I want Shyamalan to be, and I love this phase of his career that he's really just kind of gone whole hog. Is that the expression? I don't actually know if
Yeah,
that's the
sure.
expression. Into this becoming this B movie director, and I think that's the key to unlocking this movie. Is he is trying to do a science fiction B movie, but he's one of the most skilled directors ever. So he makes the thing look and feel and move just beautifully. And I think that's, when you're talking about the tones butting up against each other, when you're talking about the things that people didn't like and the reason people made fun of this movie, is it's because it's this fascinating treat where it's a movie clearly written to be this kind of campy B movie, but also it has Shyamalan's, artistic flair with the camera and his tendency to also just like get really at the heart of people. Like it wants to be a silly kind of laugh at it B movie, and there are moments where it absolutely is that. But then it has to be this movie that's telling this greater message and exploring this concept of age and what it means and what life is. Like this is just this huge metaphor for like life is the beach that makes you old.
Right.
And I think that turns a lot of people off, and understandably so. But I, on the other hand, loved it. I do think this movie has more in common with The Happening than it does with a lot of other Shyamalan's other movies, because I think he was doing a similar thing there, where he was intentionally setting out to make this very campy, very absurd B movie. I think he leaned more into it in that movie. And this one, I think he was having fun with it, but he wanted it to get back to this very serious, meditative, analysis of what life is. And I don't know, it just works on me, man. Like, I think the thing that I want to get into first and foremost is the writing. And when I'm talking about the writing here, I'm not the structure. Here I'm talking specific to the dialogue, because the dialogue in this movie is very strange. It is very, very weird. None of these people talk like human beings talk. None of them. And that turned a lot of people off. This is a movie that opens up and our four main characters are in the bus on the way to the hotel, and they are basically like talking the themes at each other. Like in a like 30-second succession, we have the mother say like, "I can't wait to hear your voice when you're older," and something to her son about like, "Don't waste time, it goes by so quickly." Like they're outright saying the themes of the movie right there at the beginning.
That's certainly true. I will admit that none of that actually bothered me. I mean, it's somewhat on the nose, but I don't actually have a problem with writers just telling us what they want us to understand.
Oh yeah.
So we'll get to the stuff that I kind of struggle with, but I didn't actually have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, the other thing is just the random kind of non sequitur strangeness of the dialogue. A lot of times, like we're introduced to the son character, who like his favorite thing to do is to just walk up to people and say like, "What is your name and what is your profession?" And he's just like a fucking weird little kid, and like a lot of people thought that was silly and ridiculous, and it is in a certain way, but it also is just is supposed to me just emphasize the fact that he is this kind of precocious, different looking little child. Who's just not different looking, different acting little kid, and he's just weird. He's just kind of weird, this little kid.
Yeah. So yeah, this is my story about this movie is that they got to the part with the kids doing that, and I had kind of heard about this on the socials and had seen people making fun of it, and so I was expecting it to be like really, really corny and unbelievable, and then I saw it and I was like, sorry to break it to you folks, but this is the way like 6 through 9 year old boys behave. Like,
sure.
Like you must have repressed the way that 6 through 9 year old boys actually behave, because they're super awkward and like silly and like I can totally believe that as a thing that a kid would do.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, that's also a writing trick to be like, I want to introduce all of my characters super quickly and efficiently.
Yeah.
So and set these things up without having to do a lot of work. So I'm going to unrealistically have them say their names and their jobs, which is going to be useful later. Which is like, yes, that is what he did. But I didn't actually find it unrealistic that the kid would do that.
Yeah, no, I think the interesting to me, I think the kid is the least the biggest target for this kind of thing, but the least offensive in it. But I think you will have to admit that the dialogue in this movie is a little off. It's a little stilted. It's like I think the one character I'm thinking of is the guy from Lost who I think his name in this movie is Jaren, and I know his name in this movie is Jaren because he like tells people his name like 30 times, right? Like this is a guy this is like our introduction to the character of Jaren is his wife is having a seizure. The Rufus Sewell character comes down and says, "I'm a doctor," and he says, "I'm a nurse. My name is Jaren." And it's just like it's a little weird. It's a little off. And I think that's a lot of the tone of this movie. These characters are all just a little different, and the way they talk to each other and the way they interact with each other feels a little wooden, a little stilted, a little abnormal. And a lot of people are looking at this and saying, "God, M. Night Shyamalan just doesn't know how to write people." And I'm like, "No, man. Like he of course he does. Have you watched his other movies? Like he's a different person. He's a very different kind of person, and he sees the world in a very different kind of way. And the way he's writing this movie has a lot of intentionality into it. The way these characters interact with each other, the way they perform, the way the reason they're saying these lines the way they are, it's all has a lot of intentionality to it. And to me, it goes back to the campy nature of the movie. He's trying, like, there is a part of me that says, Ken Leung, who plays the Jaren character, he was Miles in Lost, and he was very good in that show. He's a good actor. He knows how to act. In this movie, he plays a very kind of wooden, stilted character. He's a very interesting performance, and it's not because the guy doesn't know how to act. It's like that's direction. He was told to act that way, and so this is what I think how Shyamalan is trying to summon up the camp again, to summon up the B movie thing. That like these are B movies made. We're not the finest actors, so the dialogue is a little wooden. The performances aren't that great, and that's what he's doing, I think.
Interesting. Yes, I think that to the degree that I was even really thinking about the performances as being unusual, I was thinking like the point here is not that they are on a supernatural beach. Like the point is that this is a metaphor for all of us going through our lives and our attitudes about our lives and our are we going to take things gracefully? Are we going to be brave even in the face of hopelessness? Are we going to rage against the dying of the light or accept it? What do we do? Do we take care of our loved ones, or do we abandon them due to our own fear? Like all of these. So like these are the things that are important, and there's a risk doing that. Like this is the way I think about it. There's a risk doing this movie where you lose all of the power of that metaphor by being too like just executing on the premise directly, which could also be a fun movie. Like you could just do the movie and like forget that there's a metaphor at all. But Night here is making the metaphorical level be the almost primary level on which you're experiencing the movie. Like you're constantly aware of the metaphor, it's so that's one way in which I was kind of interpreting the way that the performances were. Like it make specific things, like it makes no sense that mother and daughter would be having this argument about the mother wanting to divorce the father when they're in this life or death situation. But it's like, well, this is what life is about, though. This is the substance of life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like the whole thing is life moves way faster than you feel, right? Like you turn around and suddenly your kid is a teenager, and you're like, how did that happen? Suddenly we're old people. How did all this go by so quickly and so fast? And that's all present here. And it's a lot of times, like I think some of my favorite lines in the movie, I think I sent it to you. It's when the girl Maddox is suddenly finds herself at like 16 years old, 17 years old, with the brain of an 11-year-old still, and she's like trying to process like all the incredible things that her body is throwing at her right now, and how she doesn't understand it all. And her line here is, "My thoughts have more colors in them now. Yesterday I had a few colors and they were very strong. Now I have more and they're quieter." And it's just like a fascinating like window into like how do you explain what it must be like to suddenly wake up and find out that you've moved through puberty, you're basically an adult, and you just don't understand what all this stuff is and what it means and what's happening to you internally, and how it happens so quickly, and it like childhood is just this rush of everything changing constantly, and it's so overwhelming, and it's beautiful, and it's beautifully written. So I totally agree with you that, you know, this is a movie that is having so much fun with all the B movie concepts. It is basically, I think Shyamalan like said, okay, beach that makes you old. What is every fucking mental crazy thing I could do with that concept? And he did them all.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you're right that this is first and foremost a movie about the experience of life and the trials and tribulations of living your life. And finding a way to focus on those things, and getting to see, you know, again, this cool genre fiction thing, we get to see people experience a lifetime in a day. And so you like the scientist performing the drugs experiments on these people, we get to see an entire life over the course of a day, and hopefully learn from that, and learn, you know, what these people realized very quickly. We have much more time to realize these things and learn these things and learn these lessons and put these lessons into our lives. And it's great. It's fucking great.
Yeah. Like there are specific elements that worked incredibly well on me. Like I almost can't even list them. I think the number one, you know, scene set piece that just nailed it for me was, you know, the death of our two main characters, basically, where they've grown old and their children are surrounding them. And I don't want to just like describe it rotely, but like it's just it's like every microscopic choice in that whole scene, what the camera is doing, the movements of the characters, the lighting, just everything is perfect, and it works on me perfectly.
Yeah. It's a beautiful scene. The writing there is really good too.
Yeah.
The dialogue, like they're talking about like, were we fighting about something? I can't even remember what we were fighting about. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm not even mad anymore. Why did we ever want to leave this beach, aka our lives together? But all I know is it doesn't matter. I feel the way I feel about you. And you're right. Like one of them has like his eyesight is gone, so he can barely see. The other one can only hear out of one ear. And so because of that, they're like forced in this conversation to be really close to each other, because he needs to be able to see her and she has to be close to be able to hear out of her one good ear. And so that brings this intimacy to the scene, because they're like forced to be right next to each other, and they're much more physical than they have been the rest of the movie, because that's the only sense they have left to really communicate with each other. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, lovely scene.
Yeah.
And of course their kids are around, like taking care of them, like shifting into the caretaker role. It's all great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't prove this, and it's really just a suspicion. But I felt like every time they show, they keep cutting to the wife's face from the perspective of the husband when he can't see.
Yeah, and
it's blurred. And I kept thinking, I think that they're showing her as she actually looks, like her young face blurred, because it doesn't quite look like her old face blurred. And to me, that was almost to say he's always going to see her like that.
Yeah.
You know, which,
no, I like that.
And I don't know if that's really there or not, but that was one that was just kind of a feeling that I had while watching those bits.
I like that.
And that's the kind of thing that I would think that Shyamalan would choose to do. Like that's the kind of really subtle, like literally subliminal thing that he would do.
Well, and I mean, I think to talk about the directing, this guy's a fucking master. Like, you know, like just like The one thing I've been noticing, I've been watching that show Servant again that's on Apple TV. That he doesn't direct every episode. I think he picks like 2 or 3 episodes a season to direct, and he did the premiere. And one thing I noticed that reminded me of our Sixth Sense conversation is how much, and this actually relates to our conversation about Wes Anderson too, because Wes Anderson really likes doing these horizontal pans, and Shyamalan really loves to do vertical pans. He really loves to like start high and then like swoop the camera down slowly, or vice versa. And this movie does that so much and so expertly. Like, and it does horizontal pans as well. Like, I love the camera in this movie, man. It's so fascinating. The way he hides information from us, and then the way he reveals it for the biggest effect. The biggest example of that is the first time we see the kids grown up. Like he hides what they look like. They're not grown up, sorry, older, 11 and
teenager,
16, yeah, whatever. He hides that from us for so long. We just see them from the back, and you can tell they're different actors and different voices playing them, and then you have the other 2 characters react to them and do the guess their ages scene, which is just perfect. But he's hiding it from us, and then just set up this wonderful like very abrupt cut to a wide of the 2 of them just standing there looking confused, and it works so well on me. It's such good camera trickery where like the camera's kind of making you anxious, because it's like, why are you hiding this from us? Why? Like, it's like the camera's going out of its way to never move or cut in a way that we can see them from the front. And it's kind of like, like if you're trying to see something and there's a person in your way and you just want to kind of like push him out of the way. And that's what I felt at times. I just wanted to like grab the camera and move it, or like push another character out of the way to let me see what the movie was obviously hiding from me. And I think that really worked there.
Yeah, he manages to make the whole movie just throb with anxiety. Tricks like that. I mean, from the writing perspective and also the directing perspective, of course, we have the Rufus Sewell character losing his mind, and just the way that is portrayed visually is just makes you constantly worried. Like, what is he going to do next? We can see him, losing it. Like they're having to handle him, and then finally he goes completely off the edge. It's basically, it is this sort of sci-fi very, very dramatic and thematically rich exploration, but then he does allow it to be a little bit of a horror movie. Not so much that it becomes like, oh, this is just a horror movie, but it has tons of horror elements in it.
Yeah. I mean, the woman with the calcium deficiency that becomes a monster, basically. That is such a fun, creepy, terrible idea that I just love so much, that like her bones are breaking and then healing instantly, and so she like, it doesn't make any sense. And that's one thing, like if you try to come at this movie with like a science perspective, you're just gonna ruin your time. And that's a lot of the complaints I saw of this movie were like the CinemaSins type nitpicking at it's like, no, it's fucking magic, man. It's just a magic beach. The beach is magic. Just yes, the characters are trying to come up with rational explanations for everything, but I think you pointed this out to me, that something I never really stopped and thought about. They don't actually know what they're saying is true. Like someone says like, well, why are our fingers and fingernails and hair not growing? And it's like, oh, because maybe those cells are dead, so they don't do that. And that's just a guess. They don't know. They don't know why this is happening. And it's happening because it's a magic fucking beach.
Yeah, and that doesn't really make sense, because your hair and nails are dead. Your hair follicles and nail beds are not dead, and that's
the thing that's actually causing the thing to grow.
And I believe someone at some point says something like, the rocks in this area, something magnetic, and it's like, like that, like nobody actually knows. Like it's like clearly they don't understand what's going on here. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Especially since like they don't just pass out when they walk to the rocks. They like turn around and end up back on the beach, right? Like it's like, and it's, you're right. This doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And trying to get into it, like just because the movie like winks at there could be a scientific explanation for this, doesn't mean that's actually key to what the movie is doing. And I feel like people get so distracted with that particular thing, and then try to analyze this from a realistic perspective. And it's like, that's not the level this movie's playing on. It's just not.
I will say that, that being said, I did not love the way the movie ended, where we go back to the hotel and we spend well, not just go back to the hotel, we spend all this time with like these people who are developing drugs and so forth, and like that. That's the kind of thing where I get it. Like that's the kind of story that I can even see myself writing, where I'm like, got to make it make sense, and you don't just want to end it where it's like they all die on the beach. I mean,
Yeah.
you could, I guess. You could
I
end it
could have
with
seen it that
like,
way for sure.
yeah, or you could just have, maybe the siblings escape and you remove the whole element where, people trap them there on purpose. It's just like, I don't know what that adds. And
to me, there's no difference between that and the wouldn't it be cool if we had to try to remove a tumor in a place where cells are healing almost instantly. To me, it's just another like bullet point on Knight's list of nifty things to do with this concept. Like, you come up with the concept, okay, the beach basically accelerates time for your cells. You come up with that concept and you say, what are all the cool shit we can do with this? And one of them is, oh, that would be really useful for like drug trials, because instead of having to wait an entire lifetime to see the effectiveness of the drug, they could see it instantly, basically. And so that becomes just another, wouldn't it be cool if? And I think because it's the wouldn't it be cool if that the movie ends on, it makes it seem like it's the crux, it's the conceit of the movie, when it really isn't. It's just another wouldn't it be cool if that he kind of tossed in there. I really think I agree with you. I think the ending is the weakest part. I don't like anything back at the hotel. I'm not sure how we're supposed to feel about these people, because all these people legitimately think they're doing the right thing, like they're helping people. We see that they've now developed an epilepsy medicine that will, save lives. It will help people for sure. And we get the feeling that this has been going on a lot for years. And a lot of the drugs this is a successful pharmaceutical company, and a lot of the drugs this company have been developing have helped people. And so I don't know what to do when like the girl that serves everyone drinks like sits down on the bench at the very end with this like look of shocked uncertainty on her face. Like, what does the movie want me to do with the emotion right in that scene? So I kind of agree with you. I think a better version of the movie just kind of sticks to the beach the whole time. You just like what single location beach the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I could keep complaining, but I don't really want to. I don't think it was. I think he wanted us to end on a win, because otherwise people would have been really depressed. But like, I don't think it would have been bad for the movie to be tighter and more sad, just kind of leave you with a wistful, sad feeling. Or honestly, I think even if the siblings had just escaped on their own, and then you're like, hey, at least a couple of them survived, and that's, they're still in their 50s or whatever now. They've lost, at least half of their lives to this tragedy, and their parents and everything, and that's still sad.
But that's life, man. Eventually the only people left in your family are you and your siblings, and if you don't have kids, it's just you. And I loved the line about like, do you think all adults feel like they're still 11-year-olds inside their head? And like, the answer to that question is kind of like that. Like, you feel different. It's this amazing complicated mix of, you feel different, but you also don't feel different. Like, inside my head, I still feel like a teenager, but also I feel like a 30-year-old, mid 30s. Like, it's this really fascinating thing, and I think the movie is getting at that. Like, you look at these two kids, the last thing they do before they swim out to try to escape is they build sandcastles, and they're just like casually sitting there building sandcastles. And this is the mind of an 11-year-old and the mind of a 6-year-old in the bodies of 50-year-old people, and yet they're channeling their inner youth. And that's like a complicated mess. It's very hard, I think, at times, and I think this is part of the point of the movie. It's very hard to look at them and remember that they're like 6. I think like the pregnancy scene in particular is one that really challenges you in that regard, because these two, the boy and the girl, were 6 years old, and suddenly they're in the bodies of teenagers who are going through puberty, and they have no fucking idea what's going on. It's just like completely overwhelming, and they're not even like sure that what they're doing is the thing that makes babies, right? I think he said, oh, I thought you had to do it like 10 times or something.
Right.
Like they have just enough knowledge that is the thing without really understanding the thing at all. And it's very difficult, like, to look at that situation and see teenagers and assume they're teenagers, but no, they're not. They're kids still. And I think that's, again, intentional. That's what the movie is doing on purpose.
I agree absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's probably the most disturbing scene, because what you're seeing is so profoundly clashing with your kind of moral sensibility of what you kind of intellectually understand to be happening. And it becomes complicated at a certain point, because the little girl, I think she might even be younger than 6. She's no longer acting like she's a little girl by the time that she dies, because I think that her I think all of their minds are expanding as their brains expand, and so she's awakening to kind of the mind of an adult, but with only the life experience and memories of a child. And that's kind of exactly what you were talking about. Like, I have a continuity of experience with 7-year-old Matt, and in a lot of ways, I can remember certain events, and I can remember even like the thinking through certain things or making certain choices, and know that was me who did those things. But it's like, that's not really the same mind that I have anymore. And so it's interesting. It's fun to think about all of that. Okay, she's 5 years old, but is she real? Like, she has 5 years of memories. Her mind isn't the mind of a 5-year-old anymore. So what is she? And it's like, well, we have no classification for this. This is not something that has ever actually happened, but it forces you to think about it.
Yeah, it forces you to reckon with the idea of what is that experience? What is being 16? Like, what is that? What does that mean when you say you're 16 years old? Well, you're saying you have 16 years of experiences, but like, what if your mind is the mind of a 16-year-old, but you don't have 16 years of experience? Like, like what if you were in a coma for 10 years? Do you have the mind of a 5-year-old? No, of course you don't. You have the mind, like, this is all really complicated stuff. And I think the movie is trying to by using this method, it is trying to get us to think about and explore these concepts of what does it mean to be old? What does it mean? Like, what does it mean inside, in your brain, in your consciousness? What does that mean? And I think that's such an astute observation that, when we see her right before she dies, she is not acting like a 6-year-old. She's not. You're absolutely right. The way she's talking, the way she's processing her grief over losing her daughter, and like, I think she says something to the effect of, "I have to take care of my father. Like, he needs help," and that is a level of concern and empathy that, like, I just don't see just a regular average 6-year-old kid like being able to consciously recognize, my dad is unwell, he needs help, and only I am the one that can do that. And so I'm going to take the initiative and the responsibility here. That is the mind of an older person for sure.
Yeah. Her story is super sad if you think about
so
it.
Fucking sad,
if you just focus on her, her dad has a total breakdown, and like seems to forget that she even exists.
Yeah.
Her mom has a different kind of breakdown, and I guess also forgets that she exists.
Just abandons her. Yeah,
just abandons her, and abandons her to just like, hey, figure it out. Neither of them offer her any human anything when they realize that she's pregnant, and then she has the baby, and then the baby dies. They're not even present. And then she, tries to have some kind of connection with the boy, and then she tries to escape and she dies. And it's like, oh my God, this is the saddest thing in any Shyamalan movie ever, if you just look at the facts of the story.
Well, and I think it reinforces the metaphor to show that she does have genuine grief and loss at losing the baby, because I think you could very cheekily say, like, well, she's 6 years old, she doesn't even understand that she was pregnant and the thing was dead within seconds, and so she was only pregnant for 20 minutes and the baby died almost immediately. So how can you have grief for this thing? And I was like, well, I mean, tell that to any pregnant woman that's lost a baby, in utero, right? Like, that's absolutely, they have grief over that thing.
Yeah.
And I love that it totally explores that. And I mean, that scene, man, it's horrifying, right? Because it's horrifying, and this is what I mean by like B movie. It's kind of funny too. It's kind of funny that they leave the two kids alone for like 5 minutes,
right?
And then when they come back, they're walking up on them, and she's like 5 months pregnant, and she says something to the effect of, it's fine. We were just playing. I just got a little fat or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny.
Yeah.
And then the movie like lulls you in with the funny and then the horror of it. And speaking of horizontal pans, the shot where she has the baby is one of the greatest horizontal pans I've ever seen, where the camera just like slowly moves away from her having the baby and like turns slowly down the beach to some of the other characters like reacting to it, and to, I believe it's to the dad trying to explain to his son what it means to get someone pregnant. And while that is happening, labor is happening, and then we hear the baby cry, and once the camera hears the baby cry, it starts slowly panning back over to it, and before we even get there, before we can even see the alive baby, the cries stop and it's dead. And it's just like, so this is what I mean when Shyamalan is like one of the best, like, just cinema, I don't want to call him a cinematographer because obviously he had a cinematographer, but just like, he knows what to do with the camera. He's so fucking good at it. And the most hilarious thing about his career is that he has this cheesy, campy B-movie sensibility with just this incredible artistic skill behind the camera. It's astounding to me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that distinguishes him in everything is he has a very specific and unique vision for how he wants the thing to go, from acting to cinematography to I mean, even lighting. I'm sure like he's controlling all of these elements and in ways that are unusual, and sometimes they land weird. Like I'll be honest, when the baby died of being neglected after being set on the blanket for 5 seconds, I kind of thought that was silly. Like I didn't, that moment struck me as like, you know, like okay, I get that that's yet another of the like fun things that you can do with the conceit of beach where you age fast. But I was like, I had a hard time taking that seriously. And it's like, I think that's the risk that you take when you have your hands on everything, is that some stuff's just gonna kind of misfire because you don't have all those people around you kind of checking you.
Sure.
I mean, that's my like overall, I don't even want to call it a criticism of the way he does things, because it's just it's also the reason why he makes so many cool things.
Yeah.
But like you know, a couple of moments of, you know, awkwardness or like things coming off as funny when maybe he didn't mean for them to be funny, or maybe he did mean for them to be funny. I don't know. But I think this is the problem people have with like The Happening as well, where you're like, I can't tell. I don't know what you want me to feel here.
That's why I love that movie so much, because you're right. I like the only thing I'm absolutely 100% sure of in that movie is that he was fully aware it would be funny to hire Mark Wahlberg to play a scientist. Like that's the one thing I'm sure of, that he was fully aware that would be fucking hilarious. But yeah, there's moments that like, it's like, it's someone who has such a weird out there sense of humor that they tell you a joke and you're like, was that a joke? Like in The Happening, like the whole guy with the hot dogs.
Yeah.
Like you're like, was the movie trying to be funny? Like,
yeah.
I'm not 100. Like, I think that's funny. Like, I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's goofy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like if it were written, you know, in a writer's room or whatever, and they were going to go with the hot dog guy idea, then the hot dog guy thing would be like a setup, and then there would be a payoff to the hot dog.
There's no payoff.
There's no payoff. Like, it's just weird. It's just weird. And you're like mildly uncomfortable and maybe, you know, like awkwardly chuckling.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of his humor style, I guess we can call it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the eternal night question for me is he like sitting in the back of the room laughing to himself about how everyone's confused about this guy? Or does he legitimately think he's just written the greatest joke of all time? And like, everyone's just like, yeah, Knight, he really likes hot, I get it. And he's like weird about how much he likes hot. Yeah. was a great joke, man. And I don't know the answer to that. I want to think it's the former. I want to think he's fully conscious and aware of this. But the more I study him and the more I've read about him, he's just a very different kind of person. And he sees the world through a very specific kind of lens. And he shows us that lens. He makes that lens for us. And everything looks a little different. Everything looks a little weirder. And sometimes you're absolutely right that you're just like, huh, okay. Like the whole concept of having a character in this movie named Midsize Sedan, like a rapper named Midsize Sedan.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people took that as like M. Night Shyamalan does not understand rap music at all. And he's just like, I need a name for like a rapper. Sure, Midsize. But like, I'm like, no, he did that on purpose because that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous rapper name. And that's the point. And like, that's a character named Midsize Sedan is the hot dogs of old. It's just like,
well,
huh.
The best thing about the mid-sized sedan character is that the character is played completely straight and completely serious, deadly serious. Like he is in fact the most straight man performance of the whole movie. And his name is Mid-Sized Sedan, which I mean, you can even see that as a kind of payoff because eventually he tells the girl his name and he's like, I just wanted somebody to know that.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to die here. And then it actually like, see, none of that stuff bothered me. It's only the parts where I'm genuinely like, is this an attempt at camp or is this just a misfire? Like, is this like, he wants me to be sad about this, but instead I think it's funny, or he wants me to think this is funny and instead I think it's, confusing or whatever. And, and it's not the worst sin in the world to misfire, you know. It's just like, and there's honestly relatively few moments like that in this movie. I other than the fact that I just didn't like the decision to go with the ending that he went with which is more on the story structure level. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a really good movie. I was retroactively disappointed in all of the people on Twitter who were ragging on it because I'm like, you clearly didn't think about this very hard, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, this is something I think we've kind of touched on this in the past, but I want to bring this back around because I think the way the culture as a whole treats M. Night Shyamalan is really strange to me because like, I think like the internet has signaled it's okay to just make fun of this guy. And so everyone just gets on the bandwagon and I totally understand why The Beach That Makes You Old became a meme because like just saying The Beach That Makes You Old is funny. Like I kind of chuckle like at that, like what's the movie about? It's about a beach that makes you old. Oh, that's like, I totally understand why that's memeable. I get it. But yeah, we approach this guy in this like, where we're just like, we can't wait to pounce on him, you know, like he does one movie that's like successful again, like Split, and we're like, oh yeah, he's back. But like in the back of everyone's mind, it always feels like they're just waiting for him to do one thing that reminds them of The Happening, and they're just gonna like pounce on him again. Be like, I knew it. I knew you were this piece of shit that I actually hated the whole time. I knew it. You're terrible at writing dialogue. You're awful. It's like your movies suck. Like it just feels like we're always ready to tear him down again. And I really legitimately do not understand why this particular director, like there's you know, infinity directors out there that are making much less interesting, like worse movies than M. Night Shyamalan is. And even if you don't like the movies, even if the movies have more of those kind of weird moments that don't work than they have good moments, like he's always doing something. He's always doing something new and weird and different. And I just don't understand why with this, is this guy? I just don't get it.
It almost gives me these like Harrison Bergeron vibes where it's like, it's because he's so unrepentantly himself and refuses to do things the way that they're supposed to be done. I'm making air quotes here. And it's like, that's, you nerd, at least have the dignity to realize that you made a weird movie and admit that it was weird, nerd. Like that, like this is the vibe that I'm like picking up from the way people talk about
Yeah.
his movies, and like the fact that he just keeps making weird fantastical stories like exactly the way that he wants to make them is offensive to a certain kind of person who I don't know, just a certain kind of gatekeepy
just Twitter, really. I mean, what we're talking about is Twitter, and
yeah, but I felt like the actual reviews of the movie were not. I guess I didn't look at Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, but I felt like it was not widely loved.
I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of people that truly love this movie, but a lot of the same, complaints we saw just randomly on Twitter were some of the larger complaints with the film. And like a lot of people called the movie uneven, which I hate that it's too vague of a word to actually tell me what you think about the movie.
Yeah, I'm it's funny because it's at like exactly 50-50 on the tomatometer.
Yeah, that's really funny.
And it's the thing. Sorry, I'm not really reading it. I'm just sort of skimming the highlighted negative reviews. And I know this sounds super like disingenuous, but it's like every one of these negative reviews is exactly the thing where the person just didn't like it, doesn't quite know why they didn't like it, and so they just kind of say, this is the characterization, and you're like, okay, I thought the characterization was fine. What do you mean? What specifically was wrong with the characterization? I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody could make a case for that. I'm not saying I'm like right, and that the movie is actually good and you're wrong. Like you're allowed to not like the movie. But.
Sure. And if people don't like this, legitimately didn't like this movie, that's fine. I don't care. I do think there are these things where and I think Shyamalan to me is one of the perfect examples of why we adopted this general policy of everything's intentional and the author's a genius, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that approach his movies and if the dialogue sounds off in any way, it's like, oh, here he is. He doesn't know how to write dialogue. Boom, got him. Go to director jail. Do not collect your money. And it's like, instead, what I'm saying is, can't we stop and think about this for just a minute and think, why are we doing the things this way? What are we doing here? And I think, I see people do this with other movies. And it's not that they were universally loved movies, but there was a movie that came out last year called Malignant. It's a horror movie, and it's one of the most ridiculous movies I've ever seen. But it's intentionally aping a very specific type of film. And, I see all these glowing reviews about how director James Wan, just totally gets the mega violence, horror, weird, uncomfortable body horror film genre. He just totally gets it. And he has so much fun with it. It's so much fun and it's wild. And I'm like, great. I'm on the same page. And then those same people are like, M. Night Shyamalan, another shitty movie. And I'm just like, no, can't you see that that's what he's doing here? The man knows how to speak English. He knows how to talk. He's not writing the characters talking this way on accident. He's he's better than that. And why are we extending so many benefits of the doubt? And then for Shyamalan, he gets none. He gets none. And it's just it's like people are still mad about Lady in the Water or something, as if it's the worst crime against humanity.
That's what's so funny is I like Lady in the Water. I
do too.
I like, and I think one of the most fun things that we kind of stitched together in our original run through of all these movies was in The Village, how all of the scenes where there's stilted dialogue, there's a totally organic explanation, which is that these characters are only pretending to speak in a pilgrimy New England fashion. And then the characters who are actually raised in that environment talk normally in that context. And it's he did that on purpose. Yeah. And the characters who are supposed to be weird kids like Cole in The Sixth Sense or the elf girl in Lady in the Water, it's they talk weird because they're weird people. Yeah. And then okay, so what you were saying a second ago about admiring a director for, mastering the this particular genre trope of gore horror or whatever, that's fine, and I can get behind that. An artist who who has really mastered a particular style, a particular genre, or what have you. That's great. Obviously, that's fantastic. I think the most valuable thing about M. Night Shyamalan is that he's not even trying to do that. He's not looking at other people's horror films or other people's anything films and saying, how do I do that thing that guy did? He just has ideas, and then he's like, I'm going to make this idea. I'm going to make this movie, and I'm going to make it the way I see it in my head. Yeah. And then like, that's awesome, even if the result is The Last Airbender. Like, I'm so glad that he has that attitude. Yeah. You know,
I agree. I totally agree. And I this is the type of person I want to be making more movies, because it's so, like, whether or not it works on you, whether or not it's quote unquote good, you're always going to have an interesting time with these movies, always, because they are challenging you and pushing at you in ways that other movies don't quite. And I mean, like, I'm going to be honest here. Like, we've talked about his dialogue. There's reasons for all of it, but it is true across the board. M. Night Shyamalan characters do not speak like people in real life speak. Like, they just don't, generally. They just don't. But who cares?
Yeah.
It's it's not real life. It's a movie.
Nobody in any movie speaks the way people really speak. I mean, like that's why there's the whole genre of mumblecore, which no one likes, actually.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Well,
but I mean,
it's not popular. Put it that
there
way.
there are movies that have very naturalistic dialogue. Like, the movie is designed to have a very naturalistic, real sounding flow, and the measure of good writing in those cases is if you can write dialogue that sounds natural, and that is a skill, and the people that are good at it are great, and they're really good at it. But I feel like we've gotten to the point now where that's what we want, where if a character ever stops acting like a real human being, we're just like, whoa, my suspension of disbelief is blown. And I'm like, y'all, it's a story though. You're like our measure of success of a movie is just, am I ever challenged to believe that this is not a movie? Do it, like, you know, it's like we rate all movies on whether I feel like I'm there right now.
Yeah, I mean, people must have a lot of trouble watching Shakespeare.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Like, that's, and I'm not saying, you know, Shyamalan is Shakespeare. The analogy there is supposed to be he's doing his own thing in his own style. Yeah, and I'm not even saying you have to like it, but don't pretend that the mainstream style isn't also a style. We're just used to it. Yeah, definitely. We're just accustomed to that style, and it doesn't feel like anything to us. But that's really not the way people talk. Like, in fact, there are people who find the whole, like, way of writing Hollywood dialogue to be grating, because it's like no, you know, this is so cliched, you know, like, and it is cliche. Like, it is like the line dividing genre from cliche is pretty subjective, actually. Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like, like, if you're adhering to the genre conventions, to what degree are you just regurgitating things you've seen before, right? And so most people probably are doing that, and that's okay. That's all okay. But it's also okay when he wants to do his own weird thing over here.
Cliche is another one of those words that annoys me, because you're absolutely right. Like, whether or not something is just expertly adhering to a genre convention or cliche is just if you liked it or not. Right. Like, and like, that's it. And so, like, if you don't like it, it's cliche. If you do like it, it's like, oh wow, he did it. Look, that's a reference. And that's it. And so the word doesn't do anything for me, because I'm just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, no, I'm totally with you on this. And I do think, you know, I think a lot of this is, and I'm putting myself in this because I've definitely experienced this before, but a lot of story watching, movie watching, TV watching, whatever, is wish fulfillment. And a lot of people just like when a conversation feels like a normal, real conversation, but the character says the perfect line for that instance. Like, I watched the show with my wife called This Is Us. It's a show about, you know, family and siblings, and it's one of those, I don't know if you ever watched, like, Parenthood. I think it's by the same people. It's one of those sad makes you cry show. Yeah. And the dialogue, it's like written to be very naturalistic, but like everyone says the perfect thing at the perfect time. So like every episode, the father character is like the best dad ever, who knows like the perfect thing to say when their kids are suffering through something, just knows the right thing to do is just like mega dad every single time. And there's a part of you that watches that and is like, that makes you happy because that's what you want to be, right? That's what you wish you were. Like you wish that you're in the situation and your kid is going through something or your brother is going through something and you just know the perfect thing to say that's going to help steer them through this thing. And that is what naturalistic, well-written naturalistic dialogue can get you. Absolutely. 100%. I love those kind of shows, but it's not all that there is. And to get back to our topic at hand here, this is weird shit. It's weird and uncomfortable. And the weirdness and the uncomfort of the dialogue enhances the overall creepy tone of the story. That's what it's doing. That's why it's doing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. That I just wanted to comment that like one of my favorite shows ever, and yours too, is Star Trek: The Next Generation, which has not a single line of organic, human dialogue in the whole show, right?
Not one. Yep.
And I don't care. Yeah, I think I did kind of get sidetracked into just a general defense of M. Night Shyamalan, and like I'm probably going to end up putting this movie like in the bottom half when we do the ranking. Honestly, I didn't love the movie. I liked it a lot, and I felt like people were unfair toward it. And I think it's very like I think I would recommend it because I recommend pretty much all of Shyamalan's movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to call this like his best movie. I'm not going to call it like a modern classic or anything like that. But I had a great time with this movie. And like, this is, months ago, we had our list of directors that we would go see opening night on. And I think since that list, both of us have been proven to be liars because we didn't actually do that for any of those directors. The one exception in my life is this, because this movie came out, we got a babysitter and we went and saw this movie because I'm not going to always walk out of the movie saying this is the best thing he's ever done, but I know I will have a good time. I will have a thought-provoking time, and it's just delightful. He's just a delightful filmmaker, man. I want him to keep having ideas, and I want him to keep getting to make them and making them his way. I really do. Like this show Servant, Matt, I don't even know if I can recommend this show because I'm on the 3rd season of the show and I have no fucking clue what's happening. I have no idea. You could not pay me money to tell you what the plot of the show is. And yet I turn up every week and I watch it because the mood, the atmosphere, the way it's filmed, it's so unsettling and weird. It's just delightful. It's just delightful. And like the plot, what's happening in the beat to beat movements of the story, I don't know. I don't know. The whole conceit of the story from the beginning was this couple lost their baby in a tragic accident. The mother had like a psychological break, and in order to help her cope with it, the father bought like a realistic baby looking doll, and she was treating the baby looking doll as a real baby. And so they hired a nanny to come in to keep up the illusion. They hired a nanny to come in to take care of the doll. And at the end of the first episode, the doll became a real baby. And 2 seasons later, everyone's just cool with that now. And no one's talking about how like the doll is a baby now. And like, we're just, and I'm just like, and there's cult shit and magic going on and like magic bees. Like, it's fucking crazy, but I love it. And it's like, he's not directing every single the episode, but you can tell that the mission statement for the show was, we're going to do M. Night Shyamalan. We're going to try our best he's going to come in and do his episode, and his episodes always have a little more flourish, a little more flair, a little more of that Shyamalanity that I love, but it's just delightful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to watch it. I just like, it's literally a time constraint. Like it's a lot.
It's a lot. I understand. Yeah.
There are many things that I would watch if I had a few more, like maybe 5 or 7 more days per week.
I would say you could for this one, like, of course, watch it all. But if you just want an idea of what I'm talking about without too much time commitment, you could just watch the pilot. And I think it's just all there. Everything that the show is there in the pilot in great ways.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like that might just be fun on its own, even if I don't continue. Yeah.
One of the main characters is like a chef, but like a really classy chef. And so like half the show is, the baby is somehow alive and there's weird cult shit going on. And the other half is like, what crazy shit is this guy going to make in his home kitchen today? Like he just the most elaborate, beautiful, high class meals that like the show like takes painstaking effort to show him prepare. It's fucking nuts.
That's funny. Have you ever had a friend who went to cooking school and just made you feel absolutely inadequate every time they cooked anything?
I don't, not that went to cooking school, no, but my wife's friend owns a bakery and went to baking school. So she'll just like, here's some cookies. And I'm like, oh, that's better than I've ever done in my life and could ever do. And cool.
Yeah, right.
And you just make like 100 dozen
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, okay, we got off topic a little there. That's Servant, but that's at night, man. We will do another addendum when whatever he's doing next comes out, because I will never stop watching these movies.
Me too.
Doof. Okay, but now, Matt, we have to do the possibly difficult, possibly not that difficult task of ranking these movies.
All right. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and put the last place one.
Yeah.
Where it goes.
So there are 12 movies on this list, and let me read the movies for everyone just so we can all be reminded what all the movies are. We have The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, The Visit, Split, Glass, and now Old. So those are our 10 movies, and Matt has correctly put number 12 as The Last Airbender. The only legitimately bad movie I think he's ever made.
Which is, it's funny. I kind of wanted to bring this up during the conversation earlier, but when people ask him about that movie, he's not like, oh yeah, it was a disaster because people wouldn't let me realize my vision. He's like, no, I made the movie the way I thought it should be made and people hated it. And I guess that sucks. But what that tells us is like, yeah, he's probably that's not his thing. That's not the thing that's not his strength.
Yeah, it remains to me one of his most fascinating movies, though, because even after we studied it for a very long time and talked about it for a very long time, I still can't quite understand how it went wrong in the ways it went wrong. Like, I don't think this was ever going to be like a movie that Avatar fans were going to love. Like, he's just the wrong director for that, full stop. Right. But the frustrating parts about that movie to me were that it wasn't well shot. It wasn't well edited. Like, all there's that one scene that oneer with all the air bending happening or just bending in general happening. And like, that is in any other movie, like the highlight Shyamalan scene of the movie, where it's just incredible and flows beautifully. And you're just at awe at the camera work and the cinematography going on. And it's awful in this movie. It's legitimately awful. It's weightless. The tension and the pace of that whole shot is just, it doesn't work. And I just don't know. I don't know how that happened. And I have to be forced to conclude that it's, as you were saying, it was a big movie in a much bigger machine than he's used to working in. And he just couldn't be fully himself.
Yeah. All right. I think the 11th place is also not going to be too hard for us.
Interesting. Where are you going with that?
I'm thinking After Earth goes in that slot.
I think that's fair. That is definitely a movie that I enjoyed way more than I thought I was going to when we watched it. I tons of really, really great things to say about that movie. It's just one of those that I don't know, man. I just don't think the concept is that great. It's just it's fine. Like I agree. I didn't actually hate it either. It's just it didn't hit me as hard as most of his movies do. It's kind of long and slow. I believe this is a movie that he co-wrote with someone else, and I believe the story concept came from Will Smith. So this was not a movie that it was like Knight had this idea and he executed on it. This is the idea came from someone else and he helped shape it, and I think that shows a little bit here.
Yeah. And now I begin to be totally lost, though. Yeah.
So I mean, here's the problem we're going to face. I am an unapologetic lover of The Happening. I think that's a legitimately great movie. But should I put it far down on the list. That feels wrong to me. It feels wrong to put it in the top half, even though I love it, because there's a lot of good movies here. I would be cool in this spot with either The Happening or Lady in the Water. Again, we talked about Lady in the Water. I'm much more positive on that movie than the rest of the world, apparently.
It's be hard for me to put The Happening above Lady in the Water, though. Let me, like, okay, maybe here's how we get to have an ugly argument, but I don't think Glass really stuck with me. Like, I mean, it had some great scenes and some great moments. It's just such a, it's just weird. Like that's
very strange.
Like I think if I'm just being honest, I just don't like it, and that is true. While I can also acknowledge, like, there are so many awesome moments, so many great hard hitting moments in that movie, but it's very strange. The whole much like Old that we just talked about, how like the sort of framing story or the ending is like sort of like it didn't need to be in there. Like Glass brings this idea of it brings all this stuff into the story that just dilutes what they're trying to say, in my opinion. So I would actually I guess I'm saying Glass belongs in the lower ranks, and maybe it goes at 10th place, in my opinion.
I think I like Glass more than I like Lady in the Water, but
fascinating.
I think my favorite thing about Glass, and maybe this will help me come to a conclusion on this, is that to me it feels like Glass is Knight, like, taking the piss out of superhero movies in general. Like, he's just trolling them, and it becomes even more meaningful in a world now where all these movies are connected. And so at the end of Split, he does this very MCU-esque, these movies were connected the whole time and everything's connected. It's the unbreakable cinematic universe. And then in Glass, he just goes, haha, got you, fucker. This is not what you think it is at all. We're going to kill the unbreakable guy. It's not actually a comic book movie in the way you think it is. I'm teasing you the whole time about this epic showdown at the top of the tower. It's everyone's just going to die. Screw you.
Yeah.
And I respect the fuck out of it for that. But does that make it a good movie? No, it doesn't. There's a lot of scenes in it I really, really love, but I think I'm with you that on the whole, it's almost like he was trying to do too much. And I agree, the ending, I don't like the reveal of the secret society. I don't think that's necessary. I think you take the piss out of your superhero movies and then you walk away, and he just couldn't quite do that.
Yeah, it's like it has another 30 minutes or something on the end of it that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you want to do here? Because I'm willing to sort of negotiate the placement of The Happening.
I love The Happening way more than I love Glass. So if I'm cashing in my chips to be in the pro Happening camp, then I'm willing to put Glass here.
Okay, I say I'm fine putting Glass here, and then as long as Lady in the Water is ahead of Glass, I'm fine with that.
Here's what I'll say. The Happening is a movie I will watch anytime it's on. If I'm flipping channels and The Happening is on, I will spend the next 90 minutes watching that movie. I don't think I've seen Glass since we talked about it, and I don't really see myself like, oh, it's raining out, let's watch a movie. Oh, let's watch Glass again. I'd watch Split. I'd watch Split again before Glass for sure. Yeah. So I think this is I think number 10 is a fair spot for it.
Okay. So and then I think I can hold my nose and allow Lady in the Water to be ninth, and then have The Happening be ahead of it, even though I honestly don't believe that's true. But I know that you feel very strongly about The Happening.
Man, I need to revisit Lady in the Water again, because it's a movie that I always enjoy watching, and then for some reason, the further away from it I am, the less I like it. I think it's doing a lot of really interesting things, and obviously we talked about I think it's Knight's most personal movie. It's him reckoning with his career and the response to all of his other movies, and that it's all the more tragic that the response to it was just so negative. But it's his, we just read a Stephen King book, which was his kind of bedtime story to his kids, and this was Lady in the Water was Nights for his kids, and so it's exactly weird in the way you think it would be. But it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work all the way for me.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, for me, it's just an excuse to hold a camera on Paul Giamatti's face for long stretches of time, and like that's all I kind of need from the movie, I guess.
That's fair.
But I get it. Like that's one movie where if somebody tells me they don't like it, I'm not like, oh my God, seriously? I'm just like, I get it.
Yeah. So I guess the next question is there a movie on this list of the remaining ones that is worse than The Happening, or is 8 where we just find my friend Mark Wahlberg, the scientist?
I mean, I would put it at 8, but I don't know. I don't feel too strongly about Split. I've only seen Split once, so that would be the only one that I would be. Everything. I think everything else on this list I like a lot and wouldn't want to put below that point.
Okay. Let's put The Happening at 8. Let's do it. I think that feels right.
Okay.
Just with the caveat that in the Scott Daly personal list, it's like number 4.
Okay. All right.
But the Doof media list is as number 8.
Yeah,
that's a good compromise.
It's a land of contrasts.
Yeah. So we've got 7 more to go, and it's getting hard. It's getting hard for me here. What is next? I feel like 7 feels like the right place for old. That's how I'm feeling right now. That's exactly middle of the pack, just about.
Yeah, that sounds right. I you know what's funny is I pretty much everything between what we have for number 7 and what we have for 10. I'm like, I could honestly swap the order of some of these and it wouldn't hurt my feelings. You know,
sure.
like
sure.
that's how I'm like, I like all of these. I don't dislike any of them. They're all fine and they're all watchable.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. My suggestion for next would actually be Split. I've only seen it once. I don't see. I feel a lot less. I also like Unbreakable less than you. Interestingly, I think the funny thing about Shyamalan is that we both love Shyamalan, but we actually like completely different movies of his.
Yeah, I think we're gonna share a number 1. I think that's gonna be easy. But I agree that like Signs is a much more important movie to you than it is to me. Unbreakable is a much more important movie to me than it is to you. I like Split a whole lot more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just and solely for the reason that it is the James McAvoy like I'm awesome at acting hour, and it's just him kicking ass for like at 2 hours, and I love it for that. So here's where I'm torn right now is I like The Visit as I think I like The Visit more as Knight making a statement in a world that said it was done with him than I like it as a movie. But it's very effective as a movie too.
Yeah, I think The Visit might go around here if not below old. I don't know. Maybe we already have made a mistake.
Well, yeah, let's think about this for a minute. We might need to do our first mid list edit.
Where does The Visit go? Does it go above the Happening? I would. I don't know about
that. No. I think we're gonna have to promote old a little bit here, because I think 7 feels right for The Visit, because it is from a technical perspective, it's a very good movie. It's a very good movie. Like, he takes the found footage genre and does the Shyamalan thing to it, which is he makes it very stylistic. He makes it very tense. He makes it very, very weird, and it works really, really well. But it's also not a movie that's like saying anything really. It's just living in that fun. And it's doing good at it, and that's great. But it feels like, for a director who says so much with all these other movies, it feels like a movie that should be in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, sure.
So that means Old is promoted to number 6. I like that. That feels right. Which means I think Split goes at now I'm torn between The Village and Split for number 5.
Yeah, I see those two as being the contenders for 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Kind of ambivalent to the order. I think they're both really, really good, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think of, channeling the emotions I felt when I watched both these movies. I think Split works more on me than The Village does.
I think Split hangs together as just like, a movie better too. I mean, I love The Village. I'm a huge sucker for Joaquin Phoenix and Bryce Dallas Howard, but
Yeah.
I can go with Split being just kind of on the whole more solid.
Yeah. So we're gonna do number 5, The Village, and number 4, Split. Yeah, that feels good to me. That feels good. And now we've got our top 3, and here's where the rubber meets the road, Matt, because your number 2 is absolutely going to be Signs. My number 2 is absolutely going to be Unbreakable. What do we do? What do we do?
Flip a coin.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care. Like, here's what I'll say. When I really started realizing I was in love with M. Night Shyamalan, Unbreakable was my movie. Like I proudly said, Unbreakable is Shyamalan's best movie at one point in my life. And I was wrong. I was not correct in that. But it was a movie that really, really means a lot to me. And it is a very powerful movie. But I will say, as a, like, when it is hitting on all cylinders, it is phenomenal. I think, if I'm being honest with myself, the structure of the movie the pacing of the movie is a little off. I think it takes a little too long to get where it's going at times. And like it's a movie of wonderful individual scenes that I don't think quite hang together as well as the other 2 movies on our list. I will always love it, but I think I'm going to be okay putting it at number 3.
Okay.
Was any of what I just said reasonable or aligned with anything you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. Like, I think it's I think it's similar to what I would say about the difference between The Village and Split, where I personally like The Village more, but I can acknowledge that Split is a better put together movie and has fewer of what you might see as flaws. And and then I'm sort of on the other side here, where I'm saying I think Signs is a better put together movie, and I also happen to like it more. And Unbreakable is a great movie, but it's not. It's shaggy.
It is a little shaggy, and I think the messaging of it, like you're absolutely right that Signs is a very clear movie that is very, people chastise Shyamalan about this, that he wears his themes on his sleeves, and I like that. And I like this movie makes it very clear what this movie is about and what this movie is exploring and what he's trying to say with this movie. And there's something that I absolutely love about that. And, I really love Mel Gibson as an actor, not as a human being, but he's a very, very, very good actor.
Yeah.
And he's really good in this. And so is Joaquin. It's such a good movie. Signs. People, like, if you haven't watched Signs in a while, revisit it. It's really, really, really good, actually. And it has the best military recruitment scene that has ever existed in the world.
It's great. It's great. It's just like every individual piece of that movie is perfect. I don't like, again, this is one where I can kind of get not liking it. Like if certain sorts of things bother you, like if you're this kind of person who's going to be super bothered by like, why'd the aliens come to Earth if it's made of water? It's like, well, I mean, first of all, why would we go to space? There's no oxygen there. Like, that's a stupid fucking thing to say. But anyway, it's a great movie.
It's just fucking M. Night Shyamalan on the armchair quarterbacking of like, why are they weak to the water?
I mean, that's like yet again, like similarly with the beach being magical. It's like, look, obviously nobody actually understands why the aliens are here.
Yeah,
it's a running like almost joke in the movie that everybody has their own harebrained explanation for why the aliens can't come.
Yeah,
obviously none of them are correct. Yeah. So just ignore all of that.
It doesn't. Yeah. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't like. And I don't want to tell people that they're watching movies wrong. Like, I don't want to be that person, because everyone has their own lines they draw in the sand, and everyone does things. But I feel like if you let things like this bother you, if you really let something like there not being a legitimate in-universe explanation for why an alien who is weak to water would land on a planet that is mostly water, like, take a step back and think about it. Like, just like, that's not what the movie's about. Like, that's not what the movie, that is not the point of the film. Like, that is not what the story is trying to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why the aliens are here. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. it's just a stupid meme. Anyway,
Yeah.
that leaves number one, which is filled by the only remaining movie, the best movie.
The best movie. There was a person in me years ago that would have been sad by the idea that his best movie was his first movie, and so he peaked, and it's all downhill from there. I'm not that person anymore, and I think The Sixth Sense is a masterpiece in every meaning of that word, and I think he did something he will never be able to replicate again with this movie, and that's okay. It's okay. That happens. Sometimes the stars align, and you make Ghostbusters, or you make Ridley Scott with Alien. Like, look, we're gonna do a Ridley Scott thing with this director series one day. It's gonna be a long one. I don't think right now, going into that, I don't think Ridley Scott has made a movie better than Alien, and it was his first movie. And does that mean he's a bad director? Does that mean his career was a failure? No. It means that sometimes the magical alchemy that is art produces something so incredible that, like, even you, the creator, if you're being honest with yourself, would be like, man, I don't know how we did that. I don't know how we did that. And I feel like The Sixth Sense is one of those movies. It is one of those once in a generation movies that is just perfect in everything it's doing. Yeah. And like, give as much credit to M. Night Shyamalan as you possibly can with that, because he was at the helm of this whole thing. But it is an amalgamation of everything, just about everything that I love about movies. It's definitely the best movie he's ever made. And I'm confident will ever make. I don't think he's ever going to get close to touching this movie.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I forget where I was reading this the other day, but I was reminded of the aphorism that an author gets their whole life up to that point to write their first novel, and they get 1 year to write their second novel.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what happens with a lot of directors. Like, I remember, Neil Blomkamp being like the biggest example, where his first movie was just this, phenomenon. And then it was like, all right, here's money, make another one. And everybody's been pretty disappointed by everything he put out since then. And it's like, well, is that entirely fair to compare, his baby, the film he took obviously more time and care with. And I don't want to say like, oh, that's what's happening with Shyamalan, but I think that's like a generalized explanation for the phenomenon of the first film being this triumph. And then they sort of just become a working director, and it's just they're kind of a different animal after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. God, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
You got me thinking about Blomkamp again, and the episode we did on him, and whether 2022 Scott would agree with the very strong opinions I had back then. I to be clear, I think both Elysium and Chappie are really, really bad movies. Just really awful movies. Not good in any way. But he's an interesting person, that Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah,
what is he working on these days?
He's a bit like Shyamalan and his like unapologetic, like, I'm going to do it this way, even though literally nobody thinks this is a good idea.
Yeah, respect, Neil, but ugh.
Yeah.
Chappie. But on the other hand, Chappie.
Yeah.
God, that was a bad movie. Have you ever met a person that liked Chappie? Because they have to be out there.
No, never. No, I should ask people though. That should be your litmus test for everything going forward. Sorry, since I was on Rotten Tomatoes anyway from earlier, I want to say 32%. Yeah, that sounds about right. For what? Chappie. So apparently 32% of people thought it was a good movie, which is good amazing. Is relative. I'm really curious what he's been doing. He directed a movie in 2021 called Demonic. Interesting. Maybe I need to go watch that movie. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I'm distracted now by Neil Blomkamp. He'll do that to you. So that is M. Night Shyamalan. You want to go down the list again one more time? Let's do that. So at 12th place, we have The Last Airbender. 11th place, After Earth. 10th place, Glass. 9th, Lady in the Water. 8, The Happening. Number 7, The Visit. 6, Old, right in the middle of the pack. Number 5, The Village. 4, Split. 3, Unbreakable. 2, Signs. And number 1, The Sixth sixth sense.
It's interesting looking at this list, and the only one I like made a physical reaction to was Glass being that low. So that's the only thing I don't care about, or I'm not happy about. But that's fine. But I was thinking about something I heard on a podcast a few weeks ago when I looked at this list and saw Old in the middle of the pack. 2021 is such an interesting year in film because for a whole bunch of reasons, some of which being the pandemic, a lot of like the best working directors all released a movie in 2021. But the weird thing about it is none of them did like a movie that's like their all-time best movie. Like we talked about the Wachowskis and The Matrix, which we both liked, but I think we put that, fairly in the middle of the pack of the Wachowskis. Here now we have Shyamalan's thing is in the middle of the pack. I said last night in Soho, the Edgar Wright movie, which is a movie I quite enjoyed, but I think that I would put that in the middle of the pack of his filmography. I think we're going to do a Guillermo del Toro movie next week that came out in 2021, which also I think is probably going to end up, I haven't watched it yet, but from everything I've read, it's about a middle of the pack movie. So like 2021 was this year of every director releasing a movie, but they were all like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's not great. So I think that's one of the things is going to be remembered for this year of all directors, but like no one like changed anyone's lives with the movies because they've all done better.
Yeah, that's funny. That's interesting.
Which is fine. Like that's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's just a year of mediocrity for everybody.
I mean, it certainly was a mediocre year for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Is that going to do it? Are we done?
I think that's it. I think that is Shyamalan's Old.
And our list of Shyamalan's movies. So we will have to find a way for his next movie. We'll have to find a way to sneak this in and see where it goes.
I think this is going to be one of the only times where people might actually be mad at our ranking because I think with most directors, the ordering is kind of self-evident. But in this case, I can actually see people like radically disagreeing with our ordering.
I think people are going to be mad about how high The Village is. I think people are going to be mad that Happening isn't second to last. I think everyone's going to agree with The Last Airbender being last because everyone collectively agrees that that's a bad movie.
That's true.
I think you're right.
It'll be interesting to see.
It will.
Let us know.
All right, that is all we had for you guys this week. If you had any opinions on this list, as Matt just said, or you want to talk to us about what you thought of M. Night Shyamalan's Old, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on our Twitter account @doofmedia or over at our subreddit where you will find a thread for this very episode that is r/doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, GooTube, and pretty much anywhere else episodes of podcasts can be found.
Google should change their name to Ugle. I think it'd be better.
Ugle, yeah. I like that. It rolls off the tongue,
it
as
does.
you can see.
If you like what we do here and want to support us, please consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and get a whole bunch of bonus podcasts. We have new bonus podcasts coming out every week. Matt, you had one of your Freeman Bros episodes this week where you meet with your brother and talk about random things. What did you talk about on this month's Freeman Bros?
This month we talked about the novel Termination Shock by Neil Stephenson. It's sort of a thing where when a new Neil Stephenson novel comes out, me and Daniel will do a sort of bonus book club episode on that. So we talked about that book. We did a non-spoiler section first. So if you're kind of curious but haven't read it, then you can check that out and get a sense of whether you might want to pick it up. Awesome.
Have not read that book, so I will not be listening. but maybe I'll listen to the non-spoiler section because you guys, I love that y'all do this because you are both way more into Stevenson than I am. Not that I have disliked the books of his I've read. I've enjoyed them, but not quite as much as the two of you. So I think it's a perfect thing for you brothers to do because you're both really into it.
It's our thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to just let everyone know that there is a new podcast on the Doof Media Podcasting Network. This podcast is called The View from Halfway Down, and it sees Alexandra from Do the Right Thing with their friend Sebastian going through the show BoJack Horseman episode by episode. The first episode came out last week, and I believe they're going to shift to like a Wednesday release schedule, one a week. So they'll be doing episode by episode of that. I love BoJack Horseman. It's really, really great Netflix TV show. If you have watched it, if you haven't watched it, consider giving this new podcast a listen and enjoy their analysis as they look into this rather actually deceptively complex little show that BoJack Horseman is.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I haven't watched it, but I might just have to pick that up based on our new show.
Yeah, so you can head over to doofmedia.com where you will see the released episode, or you can just go to your podcatcher and search The View from Halfway Down. And I think they're everywhere that podcasts are. So everywhere that we are, if you're listening to this on a podcatcher right now, The View from Halfway Down is also there. So just punch that in, give it a listen, and let us know what you think. Let us know if you like it and you want more like this. We're always looking at what new shows we can do. I think, Matt, I really want to do a TV show with you. So we're going to have to figure some stuff out.
We will figure some stuff out, Scott.
Yeah.
We will. Yeah, so please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is right. So next week on the show, we are going to continue our catching up with all of our previous Deconstructing directors. We're going to be looking at Guillermo del Toro's new movie that came out this past December. It's called Nightmare Alley, and it is available now on, I think, both Hulu and HBO Max, although I don't understand how that worked. Maybe I just saw it wrong, because I saw it on HBO Max, I thought, the other day, and I was like, cool. And then today I saw it on Hulu, and I was like, what?
Fascinating.
Those are owned by different people. How does that work? Yeah, it is on both Hulu and HBO Max. Fascinating.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out why that is, and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, so we'll see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.